Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madelyn Blair, and this is Unlocked, a show about building the resilient leader in you. More than 65 million people provide care for chronically ill, disabled, or aged family members or friends during any given year. That's really hard news, which became harder news when I learned that more than 2.7 million children are currently being raised by older family members. Our show today will focus on the impact of suddenly having to care for grandchildren. My guest is Cara-Michele Nethers. But before we get there, Grounds for Thought today is actually going to feature the stories of two grandmothers who are caring for their grandchildren and how they do it. So stay tuned and see what's brewing. Such devastating statistics mean that we all must know the strategies for preparing for this. Just as you put the oxygen mask on yourself before putting it on your child, caregivers must first take care of themselves to assure that they can provide the care that is needed. That's why I had to invite Cara-Michele Nethers back to Unlocked. Cara-Michele is about simplifying the art of self-care at the Strength and Vitality Wellness Center. Cara-Michele is amazing. She has dedicated the past 19 years to helping working women over 45 escape the wellness roller coaster. Through her center, she helps these women create solid plans that will stick with them for the rest of their lives. Let me bring on Cara-Michele. Cara-Michele, welcome back to Unlocked.
Thank you so much, Madeline. I so appreciate this opportunity. I have watched many of the Unlocked episodes, and I feel really honored to be a part of the group of folks that get a chance to share information here. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Well, let's see, where are we? I think we should just jump right into this topic because it's so big. Let's begin with those situations that really surprise women over 45, especially when they discover that they suddenly have to become mothers again for their grandchildren.
Yeah, absolutely. Madeline, we all have busy, full plates. Life is full for all of us, and the thing is that we never know when the next proverbial shoe is going to drop. And for those of us who keep ourselves, right on the edge in terms of our energy, the level of commitment that we have. It's really nice to have a little more energy than the commitment that we have, but oftentimes we find ourselves we're equal. And then, as we're going to hear from these two women, you get a phone call that some family members need additional support that could be a lot of support over a long period of time. It can start to feel like a very daunting, and we can get really nervous about our ability to be the person that we truly want to be to these people that we care about.
I'm tempted to get them on to start talking about their situations. And then we can really build on that in terms of the strategies that you have.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
Our first grandmother is Charmayne Turner. She's indeed a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. And she's vice president of Youth Department Operations at the Y of Central Maryland. She was only able to speak on audio for this particular segment. And now here is Charmayne.
So yes, I have three grandchildren three young children that live with me, that came to the care of myself and my husband, because my daughter, who is a loving mother, is just currently navigating some mental health challenges. We recognized that there was a need for support. And so my husband and I made the decision to ensure that our grandchildren have a stable and nurturing environment while my daughter is able to focus on her well-being. It's been really interesting because we were looking to provide the best care as possible in a journey, for the most part, that was just filled with love, growth, resilience, and working together with my husband and some other family members. We have been able to step in to do that. We are proud of being able to take that step. We are grateful that we are able to do so. And the experience has really just shown us the power of family and the importance of prioritizing both our children and our daughter's well-being. The impact has been in, all areas of our lives. It has been an emotional impact. It has been a physical impact. It has been a mental impact, a financial impact, of course. And, really just trying to balance it all. I am 51, and don't mind sharing, and my husband is 54. And, to have a toddler in the house is we've not had one in a long time, right? And at this age, it comes with, all of the challenges around scheduling. There are 3 boys and 1 girl, 2 different schools, a preschool, so drop-offs in the morning, pickups in the evening, all of the activities that are, somewhat different for each of them, some of them shared, being able to do homework, in the evening, as well as helping to support the toddler learn ABCs and 1, 2, 3s.
Wow.
And then just the activities alone from a stamina perspective. At this age, we were pretty active, but realized also how active we were not. Have mental clarity that is needed to support them emotionally, because it was a transition for all of us. It wasn't just a transition for us as adults. It was a transition for the children having, lived with their mother all their lives.
Yes. Thank you, Charmayne. The second grandmother, also a wife and mother, obviously, is Dorothea Mordan. She's a designer, and she's the founder of Chandler Designs and the co-founder of Kitsune. Here's her story.
My husband and I are raising our grandson, who is 6 and has a diagnosis of ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. Now, I help my husband raise his 2 daughters from the ages of 2 and 6, and one of them is the mother of our grandson. And she had her own developmental delay. And as she got through high school and into college, one of her deficits is understanding cause and effect and not having good impulse control. So long story short, the father of her child died of a drug overdose. She had to rearrange her life, and she did not really have enough together to take care of another person. But now she's taking care of herself and thriving at the university level of study, and from her experience trying to become a grief counselor. So now we, in our late 50s, found that we were raising a 14-month-old child who we've had now for 5 years. And our grandson is delightful, and he's in mainstream school. But it, of course, rearranged all sorts of plans that we have. And we are both still self-employed. And we're now back on the child care wheel of fortune, with all these new logistics and how things are happening now versus how you raised your children before in the public system. But you have to revisit, what did I do? How did I do it? And you really need to not get stuck on where did I go wrong. You really just have to see, where can I learn from how I did it before, and how can I work smarter? Because a lot of it is you don't have as much energy as when you were raising your first round of kids, and you need to learn how to work smarter. Well, we don't buy every new toy that comes across our path because it's just going to be so cool for them to have this. We already know simple toys usually are better. And I can't say yet, time will tell if I'm really doing better this time around, but I do think that I'm going to borrow a quote from you about managing tasks versus time. And it forces me to get a lot of my business tasks done more efficiently. So I have more time to pay attention and be in the present moment with the child. I have gotten so much more done in less time in the last 5 years than I really thought possible.
Wow, that's quite a testament.
Things happen in life and you either decide to deal with them or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's a child, I mean, the alternative, they go to foster care. And you just have to make a decision. That's not going to happen.
Thank you to Dorothea. And now we'll return to bring back Cara-Michele. And now that you've heard that, I think that you have a sense of the fact that we kind of all live on the edge. I wonder if you talk about that a bit.
Yeah, we all have to pivot at a moment's notice. We can plan and we put things together. We've got our calendars laid out, but in a moment's notice, someone needs something else. Someone needs us to be available, at a time we weren't planning on it. And to me, this is the crux of self-care. Do we have the mental or physical energy to make that pivot and then improvise and be there in ways that we hadn't planned on for the people that we care about or the projects that we really care about? And self-care is the foundation for being able to do any of that.
Oh, I think that's really interesting because so many people are pivoting today. And yes, it may involve taking care of children or aged parents or something, but it may also just be that you want to pivot your whole career.
Sure.
And it still comes back to what you said. You've got to make sure that you've got enough energy to do with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think we take for granted how much energy being thoughtful takes, or being patient, or thinking outside the box, or being a good listener. That requires that we have, in order to do that at levels, a high level, but maybe even more importantly, to be able to do it at levels that equal our own requirements. How do we want to be in the world? That requires a lot of mental and physical energy. And if we don't have it at those crucial moments, we're going to feel bad about how we responded.
Assuming we can respond.
We usually do something. We either say something or we do something.
Yeah.
The question is it what we really wanted to convey?
That's right.
Are we going to lay in bed at night and have that kind of rolling around in the back of our heads, wishing we had done it differently or said something differently?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I know that you have something called the self-care consistency framework.
Yes.
I wonder if you just talk about that a bit, because I think part of the solution is embedded right in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working in women's health for 19 years now, and I've just learned a lot on what actually helps women be more consistent with their self-care. And, there are a few things that this framework is not. If I could run through those first, that would be really great, I think, because I think these are going to be really familiar to a lot of the listeners. Number one, it's hard to be consistent with our self-care when we're trying to rush ourselves, when we don't really slow down to understand what's necessary, what is it that's really missing, how do we want the experience to be. I kind of think about it like, we're just running along and we think, oh, I should probably do better with my exercise. And you grab it, stick it under your arm and just kind of keep right on running again, right? And on top of that, we ask so much of ourselves.
Yeah.
Most of the women that I'm working with, and I'm sure that, I'm going to say myself too, and you too, Madelyn, I would imagine, it's like we have these huge platters of responsibility over our head. If you family and work and career obligations and social obligations and our own desires, being married, kids, all of that, we're holding all of it. And we can start to feel like we're sinking under the weight of that. But because we know that we need to do better with our self-care, we just pile more on top. That we don't take anything off. We just add a bunch more on top there. And these are a couple examples of what I see all the time, what the pitfalls that women are falling into. So this, the self-care consistency framework is a different mindset on how to have consistency with our self-care in ways that actually allow us to get rid of the frustration and the struggle that goes into self-care a lot. So there's three parts to this framework. The first part is clarity on your you and for who. So the you part is like, who do I want to be? Who do you want to be for the listeners? We've probably spent much time over the years, especially when we're younger. We spend a lot of time thinking, oh, who am I going to be when I get older, and what do I want to do in the world, and all of these kind of things. But for many women between the ages of 45 and 65, they haven't spent any time in the last 20 years considering. Here's the question I like to throw out. If you could be the woman of your dreams, who would you be? That's a very deep, loaded question, and it takes time to sort through that. So that's the you part. Who do you want to be?
And I want to just confirm that, Cara-Michele, because in my work in resilience, that is where we start.
Okay.
Because when you have a sense of who you are, it increases your confidence simply because you know what you bring to the table.
Yes, absolutely. It allows us to be more confident, and it allows us to buffers us against all of the distractions that can show up.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we walk out the door, every time you turn on the computer, every time you pick up a magazine, there's someone telling you what you ought to be and what you ought to be doing.
Yeah. Yep.
And we can follow that thread kind of bouncing around like a ping pong ball, and then we get to a certain age, a certain point in life, and then we realize we're nowhere near who the person that we wanted to be. We don't have the life that we wanted to have. So it can feel really devastating and disappointing when we get to that point. So yes, I agree. Starting off with being clear about who you want to be, who the person you're trying to create within yourself is super important. And then the for who side, who is it that really needs us to show up as our best? I throw this in there, and I think it's super important because we will always do a lot more for others than we'll do for ourselves. When we say it out loud, it doesn't feel quite right, but that's the reality of many women's lives.
I love the way you said it, though. Who depends on our best?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Relationships, I think that's the real goal for many of us, most of us. Human beings, we are a relationship species, right? And much of what we're doing is about creating great relationships in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so when we are not our best, we have a great opportunity to damage those relationships.
Yeah.
And when we do that over and over again, we look up 5 years later, 10 years later, and we wonder, why isn't my relationship with this person this way or that way? And it could be just little, even unknown shifts in our response to their questions, to our body language, our ability to be present, late at night when they call for a little bit of advice. I'm not saying that we need to be Johnny on the spot for everybody who needs us, right? I'm not saying that. But I am saying that it requires a certain level of mental and physical energy in order to say, you know what, I really want to understand what's going on for you right now. I love you. I want to be there for you. And can we set this up for Thursday at 5 so that I can really be present to you? I've had a long, it takes a certain amount of energy to be able to convey that in a way doesn't feel like you're pushing them off or you don't care, I guess is really what I'm trying to say.
And also I'm thinking about it from the perspective again of resilience. Social support is essential to being resilient. So it's maintaining those relationships, whether you do it so that they'll support you when you need it. That's not why you do it.
Nope.
You do it, though, because then it will be there when you need it.
Sure. Hopefully. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's the first piece, taking the time to get clear on that you and for who. The second portion of the foundation is to decide to make self-care easy. We're going to come up with some kind of plan. Every client, every woman I work with, they have some kind of plan. But when we start to investigate and I ask them to explain the plan and we get it out on paper, maybe, it's something that's going to be really hard for them to accomplish when we take into regard the level of responsibility they have right this moment in their lives. We just ask too much of ourselves. We pack too much on there. I say, let's set up our self-care plan so that it is ridiculously easy.
I like that phrase.
Ridiculously easy. That's what we want. Because if you're already full, and when you add on something that's going to require a lot of time on your part, and it's going to take a lot of energy, which you're already low on, there's no way to sustain it if that's your current situation. And so we have to just be honest with ourselves about where we are. Mm-hmm. It's much better, Madelyn. Let's see if I believe you agree with this. I'll give you a chance to tell me if you give me a big X if you think I'm crazy about this. But I think it's way more effective and useful and beneficial for us to progress with something that's super easy, super small, to do that consistently over time than it is to have, go out for your first jog and do 5 miles, but you can't do it again, for another 6 months because you're sore and tired and your brain is like, no way I'm going back there.
Okay. I'm not going to exit out because I agree with you. I remember one time I was teaching a group of women, it turns out, and they said, well, we can't exercise. We don't have time for that. I said, do you have 2 minutes? Oh, yeah, I got 2 minutes. Of course I have 2 minutes. I said, well, do something in 2 minutes. I don't care what you do in that 2 minutes, but do it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-care industry has gotten very complicated. It's gotten very big. There's a lot of voices going on. And we can be led to believe that if we, aren't in the Pilates class, or if we're not in the, jogging, if we're not lifting the weights for 45 minutes or an hour, we might as well not do anything. But that is absolutely incorrect. I want to give, like you were saying, I want to give every woman out there the opportunity, the permission to just do those 2 minutes, just do those 5 minutes, do that 3 times a week, and let that be good enough for now.
That's right.
Yeah. So we want to set it up so that it's ridiculously easy. You want to set it up so that you have some community around yourself that can you can partner along, you can inspire each other. That we want this to be something that is doable. We want something that is sustainable. So that's the second pillar there. We want to make sure that it's easy and that it is sustainable. Once you have rhythm with 2 to 5 minutes 3 times a week, it's not a big deal to add another minute, to add another 2 minutes, right? And you do that for a week or 10 days, and then you can build up slowly. In 6 months, you're at a higher level and you're starting to really feel doggone good. And you know what? 2 to 5 minutes of stretching or exercise 3 times a week, you're going to feel that in 2 weeks. You're going to know that you are moving. Your brain is going to kick in better. Your body's going to feel better. You don't have to start off at 45 minutes.
Yeah. I live in a I live in a 3-story house. And I decided I don't ever want to move out of this because just going up and down the steps multiple times a day is great exercise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We don't need to make it complicated. And actually, I say you want to get away from any kind of complication. When you have a full plate and a lot of people counting on you, complication is your enemy when it comes to self-care. And we don't want self-care to be sporadic. You don't want to do it here, a little bit here, and then 2 weeks later you do a little bit here and there. You want to feel like you can get into a consistent mode. And so if you keep it small, keep it simple and easy, you can do that consistently. Yeah.
What has been your experience as you worked with women? What are some of the ways in which they have brought in that tiny little step and you've seen it, and then that it grew.
Well, I see it all the time. Absolutely. I have the Strength and Vitality Accelerator process, and this is a program that is designed to help women slowly walk their way through building these, having these small wins, and building consistency with their self care. And so when women start, you know what, I'm going to answer that question by telling you the third portion of
Okay.
the framework, and that is to only focus on the practices that we know are going to build mental and physical energy. Right. So I always like to start off telling this portion of the framework by saying that, a few years ago, Aussie berries were a big deal.
Yes.
Right. Your
Yep.
Aussie berries, Aussie berry bowls, you saw them all, they were in the magazines, on TV, you saw them everywhere. Right. Aussie berries are delicious and they're nutritious. But Madelyn, they will not change your life.
Oh, darn.
Right? Like they are going to provide some nutrition and they're going to make eating interesting, but they are not going to change your life. So we want to focus on the foundations of health and wellness. And it turns out that every woman already knows these things. If I say to them, if I stop folks on the corner and say, well, what are the things you need to do to take better care of yourself? They're going to say, I need to sleep better, right? They know that they need to get more exercise. They know they need to stretch a little bit more. They know they need to have good digestive system. They know they need to have better nutrition. They already know these things. So when we get started in the accelerator, we always start off with small pieces. And so let's just take hydration as something that a lot of folks haven't had. They've known that they need to do, but they haven't figured out how to do it consistently. So when I say I only want you to drink water at the level that you're drinking right now, they always scratch their head. They're just like, well, what do you mean? And I say, listen, we've got a year here. We're going to do this over time. You got your water, great. We're going to build up on the amounts of water, but we need to do that slowly. The most important piece here is are you drinking that amount? Let's say they're drinking 32 ounces. Are they able to do that consistently? So we just slowly work on that part, getting that consistent, and then we go up only 4 or 8 ounces, their choice, whatever they feel like they can do. And we hang out there for another 7 to 10 days. And then we go up a little bit further and a little bit more. So, in the beginning, that's all we focus on. We're getting a little more water and we are starting to do some stretching. Those are the two things. And it's amazing to me when I do that, when we have our 2-week check-in call, how women are saying, man, like they're starting to their brain is not quite so foggy.
Yeah.
That they're actually starting to feel a little more energetic, just with a little bit of stretching, 3 times a week. So at that 2-week mark, they've had a stretch section, a 5-minute stretch section 6 times. And it's just it's always a delight for me to be reminded of it, and it's just amazing to them what this little bit has done for them. Just a little bit of a little bit more water, just focusing on being consistent with what they're already doing. It just makes such a huge difference.
Wow. You talk about energy levels, and of course, you focus on women over 45.
Yes.
And you're right, because as you get over that, your energy, even your natural metabolic processes begin to say, okay, we've done our major portion. Let's calm down. And yet you can rev it back up. Maybe not to where you were at 19.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. But you certainly can get it up to where you were maybe at 39.
Well, Madelyn, that's a great point. The first portion of the pillars that we talked about, the you and for who, this is why we want to spend some time there and getting clear on what's important for us now. Because, I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in being as athletic as I was when I was 19. Like that's not important to me now. I don't need to be able to lift my body weight over my head. I don't need to be able to jump up on a 24-inch box, those kind of things.
Wow.
So, but if we're not careful, we will still set ourselves up as if we are chasing those kind of things because we haven't taken the time to reassess what's important to me now. Who am I now? What kind of person? What do I need for? What do I need energy for now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's another aspect to all this, and I don't know. Well, I think you can speak to it. I'm thinking about those two women and the fact that they had young people suddenly in their life. Okay, we always know that young people will take energy out of you just because you have to watch them, if nothing else, and they move so much.
And they move fast.
But there's also an emotional shift that has to happen. Maybe it's from the shock of it, or maybe it's something else. I don't want to predict. Maybe it's ongoing. How do you address through this program these, I guess you could call them psychological consequences?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Again, we spend a lot of time clarifying who needs us and how do they need us to be.
You
Right?
know what? I just realized as you said that, part of that decision or this exploration is saying to you, okay, you think you have to take care of 6 people, when in fact you are trying to take care of 26. Well, who of the 26 can you say, I love them, but I can't deal with that, and you come back to what you need? That's, I think, what you were saying, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like we can find ourselves putting energy into a situation or a person who really doesn't need us at the level
Yeah.
that they used to. Let's
Yeah.
say it that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know my parents have always been a great support to me, but they don't need to run my life the way they did when I was 20, right?
Right.
Or when I was 15, right? So my mom can relax and she can put her energy maybe into my nephew who's a younger person.
Yeah.
So but if we're not paying attention, if we haven't taken the time to kind of sort that out right now at 55, Cara-Michele, who needs you and how do they need you? Right? You have I have some people in my life who they only need me to be a good listener. And then I have other people in my life who need more physical things from me. They need me to run errands or check in more, those kind of things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that way, the energy that we do have, we can put it in places so that we have enough. Sometimes we simply don't have enough because we're trying to give in ways that the person doesn't need, or we're overdoing in certain areas and maybe underdoing in some other areas.
In a company, you'd call that budgeting.
Right, absolutely.
But we aren't an infinite source of energy, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
We have to budget that
yeah.
as well.
And here's the other piece. So we have all that we're trying to do for people that we love, but what about projects that we love? Madelyn, I'm just always so amazed at all the aptitude, the education, the knowledge that all the women that come to see me that they have. Years working in certain industries, managing people, running companies, all of these different things. And, we know that our social situation, all of the big challenges that our society has, the only way that those things are going to be changed, the only way that we're going to have a better set up a better lives for ourselves or our younger people in our lives is if there's some shifts. And so we want to have energy for our family. We're always going to put our family and close friends first. But wouldn't it be nice if the women in this age group who are still out there working in the world, they also had energy left over to take some of their expertise and put it towards these big social issues as well? So that, and I don't know about you, but I think we need to have more CEOs and leadership from these women. have them take more responsibility, because this is and we want to take responsibility on the slice that we're passionate about,
Hmm.
right? That we already have expertise in. Why not, instead of giving everything and wearing ourselves down because we haven't been putting any self care. I call it shining the spotlight of self care. We shine it outwards on everyone else. We don't turn it inward on ourselves. And we do that for 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
Right. And then when everybody's okay and things start to settle down, because we haven't been taking care of ourselves, all the energy we have, is just to do now is just rest and sleep and those kind of things, right? And maybe that's had a big consequence on us physically and mentally, so we can't go out and do more. My vision is to really support women to do their best now, but then to be able to turn that energy towards some of these big social concerns, because I just think that women often bring some of the aspects that they have innately are what we need to solve some of these bigger problems.
If nothing else, you just bring another perspective to it.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
and we sometimes think that we know everything about an issue, and it's virtually impossible.
Yeah.
It's always good to have different voices in to say, oh, but I see this aspect that you may have missed.
That's right.
And sometimes it may be even a projection of themselves, but that's okay because that's part of the issue. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that women, well, how do I say this kindly? Maybe I won't say it. I think I'll say it in the affirmative. I agree with you. I think that we have enormous things to offer to society, and that we should set aside our fear that we're going to be rejected or not understood and just go ahead and do it. I've often wondered why human beings live well past their reproductive years. And I think it's because we need the wisdom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, Madeline, I think we underestimate how much mental energy it requires to be brave.
Ha! Good point.
Right? To
Good
be
point.
fearless, to go anyway, even though we're nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But when you haven't been sleeping well, and your stomach is bothering you, and your knee has been hurting, and you have brain fog all the time, it's hard to be a person who can step beyond what their comfort levels are
Mm-hmm.
and go into the unknown. We don't want to do that.
Coming back to your three pillars, one of the points that you make around the energy building piece is oxygenation.
Yeah.
Now, I mean I know oxygen, all right. I understand my body needs it, but I have never thought about that in terms of how can I improve that?
Yeah, great. I think that is one of the pieces that most women wouldn't say. I was saying earlier that most women know exactly what it is they need to do for themselves. I think they tend to miss that one. I think that falls under a stress management um, a foundation. But our cells need oxygen just like they need water or hydration. And when we are stressed, it's super easy to hold our breath, breathe super shallowly, and then that actually diminishes the capacity of our brain. So then we're unable to make really clear, concise decisions, quick decisions quickly. Remember the pieces, the details of whatever it is we're working on. When we're in a stressful situation, it's really easy to breathe super shallowly or quickly, or to not fill our lungs, and it just compromises our ability to be our best.
Mm. And the interesting thing is that shallow breathing, that panting that we do, is
Mhm.
actually part of our body's way of protecting itself. And so
Mhm.
we have to, in a way, work against that. I had a wonderful guest, Bruce Cryer was on last week, and he was talking about the breath also, but he was talking about it in terms of not synchronizing, getting it in. I can't remember the word he used. Oh, it'll come to me.
Yeah.
But the brain and the heart and the breath, and getting that all together, aligned. That was it, aligned. So what you're
Absolutely.
saying, it's exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Let's be conscious of that.
That's right. That's right. You know, when we get to the point where we have some practice, and you know, I love that word because that's really what it is. You know, a lot of women will say, "Well, Cara-Michele, I know how to drink water. I've been drinking water all my life, right? Or I know how to breathe. I've been breathing all my life, right?" But there's a difference between drinking water and being fully hydrated. If we're trying to create a self-care paradigm or routines for ourselves that's going to build mental and physical energy, that's really what, in my opinion, what I've learned over the years working with women, that's really the benefit or the purpose of a solid self-care routine, is to make sure that we have the mental and physical energy that we need at the moment that we need it, right?
Fabulous.
So, you know, so breathing is different than being fully oxygenated. When we're fully oxygenated, or when we practice being fully oxygenated, then we can pull that out without a lot of thought,
Yes.
without a lot of struggle. We know that
Yes.
we're walking down the hallway into a forum where we're going to deliver a presentation. So slow, deep breaths becomes something that automatically happens for you because you've been
Because
practicing
you've been practicing. It's
that over
just
time.
like an athlete. Practices, practices,
Absolutely.
practices. Not because they want to practice well, but because when they have no time to decide, their
That's
body
right.
knows it.
That's right. I often use the analogy of a NBA basketball player, right? So we'll just use Michael Jordan. Everybody knows Michael Jordan, right? You know, Michael Jordan practiced dribbling, practiced shooting, practiced passing all the time. All the time, right? Why? Because in the moment, when the big game is happening, he doesn't think about doing that. It just automatically happens for him. And that's what we want that's the point of the accelerator, the Strength and Vitality Accelerator. We want to practice this, slowly build up this routine, build up a rhythm, build up so that it becomes consistent for us, and then it automatically becomes a habit so that we don't have to struggle with eating nutritious food. It's just there for us. It only works, nutrition only works if you have it ready for you when you're hungry,
Don't I know that?
right?
Come to the end of
Um,
the day and it's, what am I going to cook for dinner?
That's right. That's right. So when we think about the what I call the seven foundations of health and wellness, you know, sleep, exercise, nutrition, hydration, the oxygenation, stress management. When we think about those seven pieces, we take our time and we practice. We practice for a year so that at the end, this is just how I live my life. I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't struggle with it anymore. I figured out what I call the mechanics.
Mhm.
So, if you were thinking about nutrition, what do I need to have in place so that when I am hungry, I have food ready for myself?
Yeah.
Am I doing some meal prep on the weekends? And
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah.
And how do I go about the meal prep? What day am I going to go do shopping? How am I going to pick my recipes? What am I going to prep everything? Am I only going to prep my vegetables and then have my meats
Michelle,
marinated?
I think you could go on and on. I love it.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, we have run out of our time.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we have time for our two wonderful grandmothers to say
Absolutely.
what they've been doing. And I just want to thank you so much. Tell the audience how they can reach you. What's your website? How do they get to you?
Absolutely. The website is strengthvitalitywellness.com.
Strength Vitality Wellness.com.
Yes. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Madelyn, I know you're going to share a link, but also right there on that homepage, there's a link there for a great quiz. If any of your listeners are interested in understanding, where do they fall on the health and wellness paradigm right now? How are they doing? We've got a very quick, I think it's like 4-minute quiz that you can take, 25 questions. And I'm happy to hop on a call and chat with the results and see if there's any value that I can bring to get their scores up.
Okay. Cara-Michele, thank you so much. This has been so much fun as well as being very informative. Thank you
Thank
again.
you so much, Madelyn. I tell you, I've just truly appreciate you and the work that you're doing. You bring so much value to your listeners, and it's a real pleasure and honor to be a part of your platform.
Thank you. So let's hear now from those two grandmothers. Every now and then, there is something that changes how I think about the world. Grounds for Thought is a place where I talk about these moments so that you can explore the meaning for yourself. As I promised at the beginning, I'm going to let the two grandmothers tell their stories, finish their stories, I should say, of how they have coped with their new venture. And we're going to begin with Dorothea Mordan.
There's a lot to do to find out where resources are, like, say, state services or therapy services. And being an advocate for any family member, whether it's healthcare, mental health care, whatever, really means you have to be informed. And a whole lot of communication gets lost in email if you're not really informed about a service that you really want to get for your child. Formed a nonprofit called Kitsune, addressing the need for independent living solutions. And the area where we as friends and family found we were working in most and with our kids, is the area of developmental disability without an intellectual disability. Many people, I think, have the impression that if you have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, you must get services for the rest of your life. And that's just simply not true. But how do you navigate? How do you find any of this stuff? It's a challenge. But what we have done is sort of implement another project, which is a life skills resource database. And what that is, a database that we are populating with resources from federal, state, local government, nonprofit, medical organizations, anything that will help someone with resources and support they may need for their child or for themselves as a caregiver. The idea is you can go make a search on a dedicated database and get back, your search results will have specifically the search query that you made.
For example, I could go in and say, my child has just graduated through the public school system, but they still need assistance.
And the overall idea is that, number one, if you're a caregiver or someone in need, almost by definition, you're already tired, if not exhausted.
How many entries do you have in your database now?
We're up to about 50 because we literally just published it about a month ago. So we worked out all the user interface stuff. And I anticipate we'll be adding 10 or more a week just forever. Because I will tell you, the end game here is not a limit on resources. If there's a legitimate resource, we're going to put it in. But the end game is to keep growing this database until it covers the United States. And that's for one simple reason. The federal government sends money to each state, and each system's different. And when you have to move from one state to another, you're starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. The idea is to take some pressure off. My MO for any of the things that I do is take some pressure off. You can't always solve every single problem, but you can take some of the pressure off so you can get to the root of a problem and maybe find a solution more effectively.
And now for the final segment from Charmayne, as she talks about how she has handled the advent of 3 new little children in her home.
Well, a couple of months ago, I had a life change. My husband and my son and I welcomed my three grandchildren into the home, three young grandchildren, all under the age of 10. And so, Thursday my life looked one way and Friday it looked completely different. With welcoming three new young people into the home. And what I didn't know is how the accelerator program had prepared me for that moment, right? And I say that in that, the principles and the things that we learn around rest, around hydration, around breath, and what we're putting in our mouths and just being conscious and aware of that. Didn't even realize that I needed them as much as I did in the moment when we welcomed my three grandchildren into the home. And, prior to them coming, I was consistently meal prepping and so on. And while I wasn't able to continue with that process while they were there, I was still conscious and aware of, I got to make sure that I have enough dinner. I got to make sure that I have enough lunch, and that's for everyone in the home. And the few times that I actually was able to meal prep, and my grandchildren helped with it, it was beautiful, right? And and it just made life easier that particular week, right? Not having to think about dinner, think about lunch, thinking about breakfast, and just knowing all I had to do was pull out a few dishes out of the refrigerator, heat them up, and they were heating while homework was getting done, while football practice have to go, all the things. And so it helped in that way. I would also say that it helped that the accelerator program supported this new way of being in my home, just by bringing an awareness and a consciousness to everything that I was just doing in the day, right? Making sure that because I had already built a habit of drinking water, my body just was calling for water as normal, right? And so it had become a habit that I didn't have to think about, oh, let me drink water. I was continually drinking water because that's just what my body was used to in that moment, right? When it comes to the conscious decisions, it is really easy to eat out 5 days a week when you welcome three babies in the home, right?
Absolutely.
Because of all the things that you have to do, eating can really be I'm gonna just stop at the fast food and get that done, right? And so being conscious and aware of that and not doing it. But even for myself, the few times that I did, Charmayne didn't do that, right? And it is okay for the 7-year-old and the 10-year-old, every now and again. But for me, even the every now and again, I didn't want to do, right? And so, right next door is Chopped in the salad place. And I could go over there and get Chopped, and I was able to be in a space of making those conscious decisions that I knew were going to help sustain me in this new lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Indeed it does, Charmayne. And I want to thank our two willing grandmothers who shared their stories. And of course, Cara-Michele. Well, I hope you learned something today and enjoyed the show. I know I did. And if you did, make a note of it in social media. Let people know that there's a resource for them. And if you're on YouTube, by all means, please click that like button and subscribe. This is Madelyn Blair, your host of Unlocked. And I wish you infinite possibilities as you develop that resilient leader within you.